We will call the meeting to order. If we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry, hopefully the night goes better than that. I start off with pledge allegiance wrong. All right, so a brief explanation of the procedure. The staff will read the case that are going to be presented, and at that point, we will ask the applicant to make a presentation. We will then ask if anyone else in the audience is for or against the process, and at that point, if that's complete, we will close the public portion. At that point, we will then discuss. We may ask you to come back up, and we'll discuss with you what the details of the application, any questions that might have arisen out of result of the people coming and presenting or for or against. And then after the discussion's been made, we'll then have a vote amongst the board, and if it meets to agreement, then you'll just meet with the zoning department, and they'll give you the next step directions. You don't have to stay for the entire meeting after that point. If you want to leave at that point, it's great. If you want to stick around and see what's going on in your community, take a few more minutes and see what's going on with your neighbors. We do use the Duncan factors as far as establishing, how we're establishing the zoning tonight. And if you need to know that information, we do have that sheet that's back in the back. Feel free to take one of those home with you and understand what the Duncan factors are. Do we need to swear in, or then we need to do a roll call, please?
Mr. Bartow.
Here.
Mr. Hill.
Present.
Ms. Owens.
Present.
Mr. Shoop.
Present.
Mr. Roberto.
Present. Next, we'll swear on anyone that's going to be speaking, so if you would please stand and raise your right hand if you're going to be speaking tonight. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth before the Board of Zoning Appeals. Say I do.
I do.
Okay, you may be seated. I noticed one of the gentlemen that's raised his hand, I did not see you sign in. Did you sign in this evening, sir? I just got here. Okay, perfect. Which case are you signing in, or which case are you here for?
For the Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church.
Number 10. Mr.
Number 10, thank you. If you don't mind, come up here, or you want to take it to him? Just take it to the podium and have him sign it there, please.
Yes, thank you.
We won't hold that against you. Not you, though.
No, he's on time.
And what is this last one? That's just your address. You have to do your address. You're good.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yes, sir. Okay, so these meetings are recorded, so we ask that when you speak, if you stand at the podium and address the podium and I think it's on because it was ringing before. So just make sure you speak clearly into the podium, and we'll make sure that we get this recorded properly. So our first case tonight is BZA 2021-08. It is a request for variance for maximum lot coverage by structure in a B2 district. The location of the property is at 7765 Colerain Avenue, and the applicant owner is Andy McBride, and it's hyphen or slash the Thymire Properties LLC. And I'm probably butchered that name, but thank you very much for the clarification. Can you make a presentation for us, sir?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Located in the southern part of the township, just south of Galbraith, right off Colerain. Many of you may know it as the bike shop there. It is zoned B2, and it's completely surrounded by B2, with the exception being right across Colerain is the Duke Energy site, which is zone B3. And then I'd also like to note that Mr. Thielmeyer Properties also owns the adjacent parcel there, the dogleg, the panhandle lot that runs behind there as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Just want to make sure that the records were correct on that. So there's a zoning there. We do have some R7 and R6 in the area, but none of that is adjacent and affecting this property. This is an overview, just from Google Maps of the current structure that's there. and approved, and then the proposed structure would be in the back there. There's currently like a sort of temporary tent. Carport set up at the moment. This is generally the areas it would, if approved, that the new addition would occupy. That is the existing structure, as is there today. This is from Ms. McBride. These are her plans, are available here. Got all those out to you as well. And what they're proposing is a 1,156 square foot addition. And I just wanted to note that the current lot coverage is 35.5%. And if approved, if this received a favorable vote, we would be increasing the lot coverage at 8% to 43.5%. The applicable zoning resolution comes from Section 8.31. All buildings and lots shall meet the minimum site development standards set forth in Table 8.2 unless otherwise specified in use-specific regulations. It is not a use-specific regulation. It's a as-of-right use there. Currently, 25% is the maximum lot coverage allowed. The existing structure was constructed prior to us having this maximum lot coverage percentage in place. For the zoning resolution, the variance review criteria are as follows. The following criteria shall be used to review all applications for variances. The board shall not be authorized to grant a variance for a use that is otherwise prohibited in the zoning district in which property is located. The board may authorize a variance when such variance will not be contrary to the public interest, where, owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the resolution will result in unnecessary hardship, and so that the spirit of the resolution shall be observed and substantial justice done. The Board of Zoning Appeals may impose such conditions and restrictions upon the property benefited by a variance as the Board of Zoning Appeals may deem necessary to comply with the standards set forth in this section, to reduce or minimize the impact of such variance upon other property in the neighborhood, and to further the purpose and intent of this resolution. No granting of a variance shall be authorized unless the Board of Zoning Appeals finds that such variance from the provisions or requirements of this resolution will not be contrary to the public interest, and owing to special conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, the literal enforcement of the provisions or requirements of this resolution would cause unnecessary hardship. The Board of Zoning Appeals may attach thereto such conditions regarding the location, character, and other features of the proposed structure or use as it may deem necessary in the interest of the furtherance of the purposes of the resolution and in the public interest. And last part, no variance shall be considered or granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals which would allow a change in use of a parcel, building or structure where such change of use would be accomplished by redistricting of the subject property. Well, I've included this in every presentation. I won't read it each time. Just want to do that once for the record and the pure excitement of it. Staff findings are as such. The current use is a permitted use in the zoning district in which the property is located, B2 General Business District. The granting of the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Granting of the request for variance of lot coverage will not adversely impact adjacent property owners. The Board of Zoning Appeals may attach thereto such conditions regarding location, character, and other features of the proposed structure or use as it may deem necessary in the interest of the furtherance of the purposes of the resolution and in the public interest. Staff recommendations for approval of the requested variance to Section 8.31 Site Development Standards as listed in Table 8-2, Business Site Development Standards for maximum lot coverage by structures in a District Zone B2, with the following conditions being none.
Thank you. Any discussion? I see none. Is the applicant present? Would you come please make your presentation? Your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Andrew McBride. I'm at 227 Greendale Avenue in Cincinnati, 45220. I'm the applicant as the architect. I've worked with the owners, and to give you a brief study here, the owner, his father, and the general contractor, and we've worked together to date. I briefly spent enough time with these guys to understand that what they've got is a pretty successful bike shop, and what they need is simply more storage space because of the supply chain issues, et cetera. They need to have room to keep things in order to stay a bike business in Colerain Township. So they hired me to figure out how big the addition could be. It's basically where that sort of carport temporary structure is. Obviously, that would go completely away. it's a pretty simple building. It's not taller than anything around it, and the immediate neighbors are, like you said before, the actual owners. It's a pretty simple one-story building. It'll match, architecturally speaking, it'll match the adjacent building in color and material, and light, will light it and all that kind of good stuff. You can't see it from anywhere, so
Very good.
that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, oh, I forgot, I shouldn't say that. He'll see it. And it's his driveway that runs right by there, so he'll get to admire it on a regular basis if you guys say yes.
Okay. Anyone else speaking in favor? Anyone speaking in? Yes, you may. You did sign in, correct?
I did sign in.
Okay, very good.
Absolutely. My name is on the list.
Thank you.
Where's that list going, by the way?
We can't disclose that information, sir.
David Darwish with RC Construction, 4221 Mulsberry Road, Blue Ash, Ohio. This is, to me, a very personal project, if you will. Team Cycling and Fitness has been a Colerain establishment for decades now, and has been really one of the premier cycling stores in the city. And the reason why I know the owner is because I am actually a customer. So a proud customer, and that's one of the reasons why I took on the project, because, I mean, to see a thriving business get better and actually become even more of a Colerain flagship, if you will, I thought I would be very honored and proud to be part of that. But the most important thing is that that storage is really just so that we can allow Jeff to be able to have bikes when they are available. The biggest problem now is that if you don't buy the bikes when available and store them somewhere so you can sell them, you miss out. It's that simple. So at this point, he's just trying to be able to have a place where he can store the bikes and sell them as people would come in to buy them. Like I said, it's now the supply chain, as you all know, is out of whack. And that would be his opportunity to be able to stay in business and thrive selling bikes and being a place for people like me to go and get their bikes fixed, buy new bikes, and come to a place where you know that you're gonna be taken care of. So that's, to me, I just wanna make sure you guys realize that I'm doing this because I want to do it, not because it's a commercial thing. It's, for me, it's a very important fixture that we should really maintain and help someone like them to grow their business and thrive in Colerain. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? You signed in, correct? Yes. Okay. Give your name and address for the record, please.
Jeff Thielmeyer, 7765 Colerain Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45239. So I'm the owner of the business, second generation. My father started, well, he purchased the shop from the original family in 1980. And ever since the pandemic has happened, the bike business has just exploded. And we were always growing a little bit every year, but ever since that, I've literally doubled the business. I've also doubled my employees. And yeah, like David was saying, there's a lot of supply chain issues and stuff like that that happen. And so now I'm literally buying bikes and putting them on order for 2023. So I have to stock a lot more than I normally do because we'll go months where we literally get nothing. But then we'll go a month and we'll bring in 200-300 bikes at a time. We've obviously worked with the township for years. We've supported the police department as long as I can remember. And yeah, this expansion would just greatly help our business. And if you come to the shop, you'll see we literally have inventory stacked everywhere. I actually also own the property right next door at 7779, if you want to pull that up. That's the dentist office. I actually purchased that building last year from Rick that used to own it. So it's that building there. And I'm so tight for space, I actually have inventory in the basement of that place. So it's not ideal, but I have to do what I have to do. And my wife has told me I'm not allowed to bring bikes and put them in the garage. So if you can help me out, I would greatly appreciate it. So like I said, we literally, in my family, we literally own, that's my dad's house in the back, 7767, and then I own the property next door, and my dad owns the current building that the bike shop is in. So it's all within our family, and I think it would be a great addition to help us out. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor?
I'll speak in favor, but there's probably not a whole lot more I can say. I'm Craig Thielmeyer. I live at 7767 Colerain Avenue and been back there for a long time. Mr. Huber lived back there. That was actually, his dad had all that property back there. Used to be an apple orchard years ago. He lived back there, and ever since I bought the store, then in 1980, I've always communicated with him, told him if he ever got ready to sell, let me know, which he did, and I bought the house just primarily to have that area. We enjoy being in Colerain Township, and so I kind of look at it as a little compound back there to be able to expand if we need to, which in this case we do, and would appreciate it if it could go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? I see none. Anyone speaking in opposition? I see none. Can I have a motion to close the public portion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Discussion? I see none. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartold.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Ms. Owen.
Yes.
Mr. Shoup.
Aye.
Mr. Roberto.
Aye. All right, so now it comes to our questioning side. So anyone that spoke this evening, we may call you back up to the podium, so just be prepared. Ms. Owen, you want to start us off? You have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Okay. Mr. Hill?
No questions at this time.
And Mr. Shep?
I don't know, it's just an observation, just a question. The roof of the addition seems to be higher than the front structure. I don't know if there's any significance about that. I'm just curious.
It's higher than the
Please come to the podium. Yes, please.
higher than the building part of the building it's immediately adjacent to, but it's because of the roof pitch, it's not visible from the street. The house and the piece in the front is kind of has a normal house-like pitch to it. It will be visible down their driveway, and it'll be visible if you go to the dentist. But other than that, it's pretty tucked in there.
Okay, thank you. Assuming that's not an issue for the staff?
If I may speak, I believe the roof height appears to be about 28 feet. Is that correct? Your plans are right here if you'd like to look at them. That's what I saw on the plan, and it is not at all an issue for staff. The maximum height, I believe, is very high. It's
45.
45 feet.
Yeah.
So they're well under the maximum height for the area they're zoned.
If you're going to speak, sir, come to the podium. Thank you.
Probably the height of the building in the back isn't going to be any higher than what the actual house is in the front that the building's been built around. It'll kind of fit in, saying that that looks that way in the front and it'll look that way in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Bartle?
More for staff, kind of on a similar vein. Obviously, they meet all the setbacks.
They do.
And other issues related to the property.
That is correct. Everything else is in compliance. In an area zone B2, there are no side or rear yard setbacks, so long as the adjacent parcels are also zone B2, which in this case they are.
Okay. And the dentist property next door, it shares like an asphalt parking lot? Okay. At first, I was afraid that maybe the fire department would have to chime in because it looked like the worst case scenario, if there was a fire, a fire truck or something might go back there and kind of get stuck back in there. But that's really not the case because it looks like the dentist property and you are flush with each other. Okay. No other questions.
Yeah, I had a similar vein as far as the fire department, but I agree, there's adequate space for them to get in and service if they need to. You've been a great asset to the community. We've seen you in here before on some other issues that in support of or against some other community things, and we appreciate what you've done. I really don't have anything more to say. Does anyone have a recommendation?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I would second it.
And motion and second, discussion? I see none. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartol,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Shoup,
Aye.
Mr. Roberto.
Yes. So get the building. See the staff, and they'll get you your certificate.
But for all applicants here, I'll contact you tomorrow, just so you know. It'll be a 30-day period between, all right, thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you, guys.
Next case would be BZA 2021-09. This is a request for variance for maximum height of fence in an area zone B1. The location of the property is at 2529 and 2507 Compton Road. The applicant and the owner is Jeffrey Atkinson. And does the staff have a presentation?
I do, sir.
Thank you.
If I may, again, we're sort of in the southern portion of the township here, getting a little bit closer to the edge of Springfield Township, where we try and stay away from if we can. Sorry, bad humor. This is located just off Compton Road, as you'd mentioned. These are two parcels which are adjacent to each other. And then quite a mix of zoning in this area. The property itself is Zone B1. Adjacent property to the south is R6. Over to the west is the PDB and B3. North is B1, and then also there's a residential area zoned R6 as well up to the northeast there. This is just a sort of general aerial view, and this was the proposal that the applicant had submitted to us. Basically, he's proposing, he would like a variance to install a 6-foot fence approximately 35 feet off the edge of pavement there, well outside the right-of-way, right up against, I guess, really the right-of-way there on his property line. Drawn out on cages, this is roughly what it would look like, extending out a little bit from the edge of his building, sort of parallel with that, and then running perpendicular to the street there, near to where the property meets the creek. Most of this has been stirred up from the applicant. There was a police report filed back in August. There's been multiple instances of illegal dumping. In this specific instance, the neighbor, which in a nice neighborly manner, noticed someone dumping on Mr. Atkinson's property, called the police, and then either prior to or during the phone call with the police officer, or with 911, pardon me, went out and was threatened by the individual doing the illegal dumping. Once they had communicated, they called the police, the individual doing the illegal dumping sped away and went up the neighboring street and actually sideswiped a vehicle that was parked on that residential street. A few days later, the police, Colerain Police Department, were able to find the individual, and they cited him for illegal dumping. The variance request would pertain to section 12.8.2, which states that fences that are 50% open may be erected to a maximum height of 4 feet in side and front yards. Again, I won't go through the whole criteria for variance review. I won't subject you to that. Staff findings that the current use is a permitted use in the zoning district in which the property is located, B1 Neighborhood Business District. The property is currently being used for HVAC contracting. I'd failed to complete that sentence in the staff report, and I apologize for that. The granting of the variance will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare. Granting the request for variance of permitted fence height will not adversely impact adjacent property owners. The Board of Zoning Appeals may attach thereto such conditions regarding the location. Covered that part. Staff recommendation is for approval of the request for a 2-foot variance to section 12.8.2 for the property located at 2529 and 2507 Compton Road in the permitted height of a fence located in the front yard of a property in the B1 Neighborhood Business District. Permitted fence is not to exceed 6 feet in height. Approval of the variance with the following conditions: that the fence be aesthetically pleasing as determined by the Colerain Township Board of Zoning Appeals. That pretty much concludes the presentation on that. I just have a few pictures of sort of some fence items, if that would help clarify just to make sure we're able to nail down if the board does approve this or does like it, what they, kind of fence they would or would not like to see there. Just a few pictures of those I could reference. That concludes the staff report, sir.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present? Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Jeffrey Atkinson. My address is 120 Sheehan Avenue.
Thank you. You want to give your presentation?
I really don't have a lot to say. I just felt that a little bit taller fence would just give me a little bit more protection against vandalism and illegal dumping, which both have been an issue here. I bought it about a year ago. It's been dumped on numerous times. It was graffitied on 3 sides when I bought it. And I've witnessed some other vandalism in the neighborhood. So I just felt like that would just give me a little bit more protection if I was able to make it a little bit taller.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else speaking for?
I'm Debbie Hurst. I own Compton Recycling, next door
Okay.
to his property. And like he said, we've had a lot of vandalism there, dumping. Of course, we all know the dumping's out of control in Colerain Township. We got a nice little clean business district down there, at Compton and Coogan and up to the Compton and Pippin intersection. The dumping's been out of control. I have a lot of cameras at my place, but that just doesn't do it just for him, I mean, there's been times he's been dumped on, he don't even know we cleaned it up, because it looks bad on us and it looks bad on Colerain Township. I even paid someone to cut the grass and the weeds from Compton to Pippin, because the county's like 4 years behind. And we want to keep it that way. He's been a great asset since he's moved in. It was vacant for over a year, and it was dumping nonstop. I mean, he has really, you got to have a fence or something to stop them from just pulling in. 4 feet, they dump over it, honestly. I mean, you got people back there, we have the creek back there, where they've dumped things, and we have to get a tow truck sometimes to pull it up out of the creek. So I'm in approval of it. I think it's great. Like I said, we got a nice little business district down there. We want to keep it clean. And this is, I think, the best way for him to succeed at that for vandalism and dumping.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else speaking for? Just come at the podium, and then you can talk. Thank you.
Just how it's located right there, it's just a little bit secluded, and I think people feel they can pull back there. It seems, it may be, they find it a good place to dump, where they're not gonna be seen, easy to pull off the road, so that it just makes it, it makes somebody want to dump there.
Sure. Thank you. Anyone else speaking for the appeal? Anyone speaking in opposition? I see none. Can I have a motion for the close the public portion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Motion been made, seconded?
Second.
You got that?
I do.
Discussion? See none? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartow,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Shoup,
Aye.
Mr. Roberto.
Yes. Okay, so we will start with Ms. Owens again on this question. You have a question for the applicant?
So the images of the fencing that we were shown, that is something similar to what you are interested in erecting, or is there other fencing options that you're considering?
Come address at the podium, please. Thank you.
I was kind of waiting to see how this went. I was thinking either like that, or if that was really expensive, just put up like basically wooden posts and just like wire fencing on wood posts. But either way, I would make every effort to have it aesthetically pleasing.
And if you did different fencing options, you're still looking at 6 feet.
Yeah, or even just 5.
Mr. Hill? Don't, sir, you might as well just stay there. You might as well just stay there. Mr. Hill?
Do you, do you have any outdoor storage for your business? Do you store materials outdoors, or do you work on any materials outdoors?
Not right now. I
Okay.
don't. No. We have a dumpster there, and you know, so that can kind of draw people into kind of trying to enclose that as well.
Okay. I guess just from my perspective, I'm not a fan of throwing wooden posts up and then putting like a wire fence. I don't think that's going to look too good.
It would be almost like telephone poles,
Mm-hmm.
and you know,
Yeah.
I've seen it done. I thought it looked pretty good.
I haven't seen a chain link fence that I've liked, so I can tell you that
Right.
for me, I wouldn't like to look at that, but that's just me. Now, there's 4 other board members. I'd prefer that you do something that was shown in one of those pictures.
Like aluminum or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But that's all I have.
Okay.
And I would prefer that myself. I haven't priced that.
Right.
It may be substantially more,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, if I can afford it, I'd be glad to do that. But otherwise, you know, I know it needs to be open,
Right.
and you know, I want the place to look good,
Right.
too. You know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Just stay there. Mr. Shep?
Yeah, I'm with Mr. Hill in terms of, at least what I'm visualizing, the wood with the chain link. Obviously, all these are very good fences, but I have no idea what fences cost either. I don't know if this would be something that I'll come back to it, but that was just what I had to say.
Mr. Bartle?
So what kinds of things are they dumping there? I heard tow truck. Is it vehicles or is it trash?
Yeah, mostly trash.
Okay.
Usually when it happens, it looks like a clean out, like somebody moved out of an
Yeah.
apartment, something like that. That's what usually is. And sometimes it's smaller amounts of stuff, but you know, it's still dumping. You know, we're still having to clean stuff up.
Yeah.
Tires. You know,
And-
I cleaned up probably, you know, 30 tires from that property at least, or more.
Yeah. I guess you would be proposing a gate too, of some sort?
Yeah, I need some kind of gate.
Okay. Well, the biggest question everybody's kind of having is who determines this fence? Are there any regulations that he can use as a starting point?
According here,
Regulations
we-
as far as, the Ohio Revised Code does limit any type of architectural review. We can never say what type of material it has to be, but you can say what the aesthetics could be. So it could look like this. You can't say it has to be an aluminum or an alloy or gold or platinum or wood, but you can say it must look a fence like this, if that clarifies that for you, sir.
I mean, what about a split rail wood fence like you see houses have in their backyards?
If the board approves that and would like that, you're welcome to do that. The variance probably the request for variance is for the height of the fence.
Right.
So if Mr. Atkinson wanted to just say, hey, you know, I'll just do what I want, he could do a 4-foot fence of any style, so long as it had 50% opacity or greater, he'd be within our zoning regulations.
Correct. But you are, but you're saying if we approve, or you as staff were approving the variance with a stipulation, correct?
With the condition that it be
Aesthetically pleasing,
to the
so,
board.
yeah, I'm just curious, when do we determine?
Right now,
Right, yep.
to the board, we're determining that.
At this moment, if you agree this fence
Well,
would be
that's what I'm saying, there's all kinds of, there could be 6 different kinds that are,
Well, he gave us some options to pick out. I would,
Well, and what we can do more, that the board, you have time after this hearing as well, if you want to decide. It doesn't have to be this moment. You could table this if you wanted to, or you could say, yeah, we want it to be this style, and then you can put that on me to execute your wishes as such, which I would do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed, huh? Go ahead.
If I could, maybe, subject to approval, if I, iron out exactly what, and like bring it to him and just make sure it's, that type is gonna, whatever I wanna go with is gonna work.
well, ultimately, we're deciding that today. Yeah, so, and that's kind of how it is written, is we are gonna determine what kind of fence it's gonna be, and as you're probably hearing, chain link fence is not gonna cut it. So we won't approve a 6-foot chain link fence.
Yeah, what I was talking about, it's not chain link, it's, so I guess that's on me for not having something to show you, but, basically like, they're small telephone poles, and then it's like a wire fence that's rolled out, it's not chain link,
Okay?
and it's black, but, I mean, so you're seeing mostly through it, and then that just, rolls out.
Like a mesh material?
Yeah, it's like, well, it's like 2x4 squares, just wire, black.
You're talking about basically a deer fence or something along that line. It's in squares.
I've seen them used more lately. They actually have one right across the street. It's just smaller. It's 4 foot.
Okay.
Well, I'm just curious if we need the applicant to come back and present 2 or 3 options.
I'm thinking, because right now we don't have a defined what type of fence you're presenting, it may be in your best interest to table this.
Okay, but if I do the black fence, if I do a fence like that,
You're probably gonna get approved. That's, if it's my vote, yes. If it's, I'm not talking for the rest of the board, but if you do something along that line, you're certainly gonna have a stronger vote.
right.
But as an option, let's say, using my example of the split rail system, which is probably cheaper than that aluminum, you might get that also passed. I don't know how people feel about the look of that, but I'm just saying, depending on cost, if you were to price out 2 or 3 different options and present them to us, we would be able to react to them.
How much linear foot are you talking? I mean, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, it is. It's probably
And I would,
close to 100 feet.
and I would guess, at a minimum, you're gonna be 1,000 per section.
For the aluminum?
That seems like a lot.
It is a lot. That's why I'm trying to be realistic with you, is what this cost is, because you're probably in the neighborhood of $10,000 to do this fence all the way to what I saw there.
Yeah, I don't know what the length of your building is, but this fence is a lot more than 100 feet long.
Yeah, if you're talking going all the way to the creek.
Yeah.
It's wooded near the creek, so I don't know if I would take it all the way. But yeah, possibly, yeah.
It's roughly 221 feet is what I measured on
Yeah,
cages.
so
and
you're
that's
talking
a ballpark.
$20,000 potentially. I mean, it's not cheap.
I couldn't do that.
Well, that's just it. I mean, do we allow PVC fence? Do we allow wood? Do we allow aluminum?
Any material you could use, just clarify,
I mean, as
any
like,
material could
we
be
have
used
to-
to
yeah.
satisfy the architectural aesthetics of it. We cannot
Dictate what
dictate any of the material.
materials.
Yep.
Just the style is what we're gonna agree to. But I
I have a question. Has that been reviewed by your law director? Because I don't think that's accurate.
I have not presented that specifically to them. That is I believe that's Ohio Revised Code.
And I think that materials can be in the case of a variance.
Okay.
But again, if it's not, I'm not an attorney. I can tell you that I have heard attorneys indicate that from their perspective, you can as a BZA board. So I'm just curious of whether or not that was ran through your legal department.
I will definitely run that by them for that specifics.
So going back to which, this is your property, you know, really the reason why you're here is because we're talking 6 feet versus 4 feet.
Right.
The telephone pole in the ground and running cable through it, just to keep people from coming up to that space, may be your cheaper option. But, you know, I don't think, then that keeps you from even having to go before this board.
It's a little bit, well, if you go back to that last one, the next one, it's that would kind of give you an idea.
This one?
Yeah.
So this is like a deer fence.
So it's a wood frame with
Wire mesh.
With wire mesh.
The wire looks like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, there's different, I mean, I could use square posts, I could use, the round posts I thought looked good. But that kind of gives you an idea of what I was talking about. Not chain link.
Right.
All right, do you have any more questions?
Timing-wise, how fast are you looking to get this up? I mean, I know that you're having issues, and, you know, I don't want to hold you up, but I almost feel like you might want to go and look at some options and see what the cost is before, you know, because I don't want to put something in place that kind of binds you to it, and then you got to come back and get a modification from that. So I'm just curious what your time frame is to try and get this up to protect your property.
Well, you know, I mean, the sooner would be better, but, you know, honestly, I might not be able to move forward immediately.
Right.
Doesn't this have a year expiration on it?
This would run with the property, the variance could. So if the board would like, you could approve whatever you want to. We could clarify material if you'd like as well, but then you could, if you do get this priced out and it was way out of your ballpark, you could still come in and get your certificate for a 4-foot or lower fence in the front yard without any approval
Right. I
necessary.
did price the posts and wire like that, and that was, you know I can do that. I was gonna install it myself.
Yeah, I would say, if that's the case, I would like to see that.
Even at 5 foot.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I would like to see exactly what materials you're referring to. I know you're saying it looks kind of like that, but I'd like to see that. I can't speak for everybody else, but for me, if that's the case, I want to see exactly what it looks like before I can sit here and say, yeah, I'm okay with that.
So here's what we've got before us. Right now, we have to make a decision to either approve or deny. Or you can ask for, table this. We would then table it to the next month's meeting, because we've already done notification. That would allow you then to get pictures of what you want to potentially put in this space, and then the board can make a better educated decision. If you kind of hear where I'm trying to lead you to without leading you to, I want you to be successful, sir.
Yeah.
And we get your situation, but at the same time, we can't say, oh, yeah, we're gonna go and let you do a 6-foot fence without having some definitive what kind of fence it's gonna be.
Right. Well, obviously, I would, of course, like it to be approved today, but if it has to be, if it has to be shelved, okay. How much you're talking about that aluminum fence, doesn't sound like, I'm just trying to protect it.
Mhm.
I want it to look good, but, I can't spend crazy money on it. It's really for protection. So, if it has to be shelved, then, I'll accept whatever it is, really.
Okay, so here would be the process. You would need to make a request you want to table it, and then we will then make a motion to table it for the next meeting. So is that, you're interested in tabling, or do you want to continue?
I mean, can we try to pass it maybe? And so I can just be done with this? If there's any way, if you have to vote on it and,
We can't vote on the variance with an exception to say you must come back and show us what you're gonna do.
If you want to grant to me, the ability to exercise your will, I would do that for you if you felt comfortable with that, to say, that, you know, if it looked like what I believed, you could get that to me if you'd like to. You could say, yes, the variance has been approved to do a 6-foot fence in the front yard pending the zoning administrator, you know, approving the aesthetics of the fence. If you would like to, you could do that. Again, you don't,
could you approve me for a 5-foot, you know? Because the fence that I was gonna do, the fence that I priced, I know I can do it. The other one, I don't wanna say I can do it, because I can't go spend 15 grand on this fence.
In the size is, it's above 3 feet, so that's, it's a 3 or 4, like 4, it's
Yep,
above
yep.
4 feet.
4 feet you could do.
I'm okay with 6 feet.
Than
I'm okay with
4.
6
I'm
feet
okay
as
with
well.
6 feet. I think it's just
not
more
the
of,
height that's getting them, Mr. Atkinson, it's the style of fence, is what's the hangup is.
yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
actually seeing what materials you are using for me is what I would like to see. Because I, you know, like I said, I mean, I know that he brought up that example, but I'd like to see exactly what you're talking about with the wood post and the materials. I can't speak, like I said, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but that's just my,
Could it be voted on first, and then if it doesn't pass, can we table it?
no, if it gets denied, you would have to
Start
file
all over
again.
We're trying to prevent you from having to start all over.
Earlier you said that you had looked at the fence and you think you can do it yourself, so you know what you want it to look like, is that correct? We just need to
Either
know
way, I
what
was
that
gonna
is.
install it myself, yeah. But I only priced one type of material. Even though the black fence does look good, I would love to do that, but I didn't, like I said, I didn't price that. And, I mean, I may not be able to spend that much on it right now.
Can you tell us where you were pricing that at? Was it like Home Depot or
Mills fencing?
Mills Fencing?
And do you have images of what you priced? Because again, I don't think it's the height that's hanging you up, it's the aesthetics and what the actual fence is gonna look like.
But I could put up any kind of 4-foot fence.
That is correct,
It still would have to be 50/50.
Well, 50%.
with 50% opacity. of
But
course.
I'm only asking for another foot even.
Which means you need a variance.
Right.
Do any of these resemble, Mr. Atkinson, the style? I typed in wood post with black wire mesh. My assumption of what you're saying was something similar to this? I'm not,
It's something like that, but I mean, I would make it look good. Like, that looks, the way they got the post sticking out the top, I mean, basically, you know, there's really not much difference between a lot of those. I mean, that's chain link, so it wouldn't be chain link.
mhm.
It would just be, I mean, if you want me to use square posts, you know,
We're not hung up on the posts, it's just aesthetics of the whole fence. We want to make sure that it's, you know, not looking,
I mean, that's essentially the center. That's
So
that's
it's a-
the actual fencing.
Like a farm fence.
yeah, it's
That's
a,
the
yeah.
it's a,
actual fencing,
it's a
yeah.
kennel or
I mean, the post
pin.
could be square, could be round,
Yeah.
but basically that type of fencing, if I can't afford the black fence, the black aluminum.
Well, I'm fine with that kind of look. It just, we don't know all the minutia to the details of it. But if it's basically a stained wood frame system with a wire mesh infill, I'm fine with that.
so are we saying that
But
this
we
is,
can still,
this
can't we
is-
still have the final look be presented to the administration?
but you still gotta give him guidance as to what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, well, I'm saying if it's a wood frame, stained wood, posts, horizontals and verticals, every 6 feet on center, or whatever they happen to be, 5 feet on center, 6 feet on center, with a bottom rail and a top rail of wood with an infill of coated
Wire,
wire mesh. I don't know what else we would say.
I would say we would probably generally specifically want to avoid, or should clarify, specifically to avoid simply just a treated type of lumber, like the round farm-style post. When you said stained, I just want to.
Well, stain meaning not just bare wood,
Okay.
you know, because it'll rot and disintegrate.
but treated wood would,
Treated wood with a stainable or paintable stain or something. Something to make, which helps make it look, you know, aesthetically pleasing.
I don't know if anyone's seen the building before I bought it. It was graffitied, the windows were busted, the whole front was a wreck. You know, I put all new glass in it, I painted it. I'm not trying to put some junky fence on the side.
no one is accusing of that. But we don't know you, you don't know us, and so we have to have some sort of, if there's a repercussion because you didn't follow the guidelines we gave you, that's why we're trying to establish that. And so I would like to have some clear direction established for our staff so that you can come in and show them a picture of exactly what your plan is, and then he can approve it.
If I'm using like 8-inch round posts.
Okay.
With that same metal wire material that he showed, that's kind of like, if I can get approved for that, and then if I can afford the black fence, I would like to do that. But if I can't, then I can just go ahead and, you know, get some more security back here, get people stop pulling off the road right there.
I mean, they don't follow your no dumping and no trespassing signs?
Yeah, believe it or not, those aren't working that great for me.
Yeah.
So you're saying on the round post, you would still have a bottom rail and a top rail connecting the posts?
I've seen them without, with and without. I'm okay doing it either way. The wire is kind of a heavy gauge wire, so it stands up.
It's for kennels and horses and so forth.
We would definitely avoid anything that had any resemblance to this style at all. Is that fair to say or to assume? Well, that's a dangerous word.
Yes, for me, yes.
But we don't want this unfinished, almost farm-style fence in an area B1.
Right. It needs to
Is
be.
that fair?
it needs to
That's
be
the board's
aesthetically
wishes?
pleasing. So in that essence, go back to that last image. You take that and you paint those rails black or some other color so that it's not a raw wood, that would be acceptable, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
Am I misspeaking?
No, it's fine.
So in essence, so we would like to have a top rail because one thing you want to be able to see it. And if they see that top rail, they know there's a fence there because it's only 50-50. Now there's less chance of them trying to go over it.
Right.
But it needs to be framed in, essentially, what we would like, kind of like the last picture you had. It's where you're kind of box framing it in so that you know that there's a fence there. Does it have to be like this specifically? No, but can we say that we would like for him to follow this guideline, 6 foot?
Yeah.
Board, give me some direction.
Concur.
Anybody else? All right, I don't normally do this. I will make a motion that we will approve a 6-foot fence as long as it is along this guideline. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a metal pole to the right and left. They can be wood posts, but they do need to be either painted or stained so that's aesthetically pleasing to the business district.
Right, that would be no issue at all.
And do we want that submitted prior to installation?
He has to.
He has,
It will be, and then also, so that this will be, if anything is installed that doesn't meet those requirements, it automatically will be a violation. There won't be any
Right.
wiggle room in that, unless it's 4 feet or less and 50% opacity. And just to clarify, are we at 6 feet, are we at 5 feet?
I would approve it for 6 feet.
I would
and
approve
if
for
he wants
six.
to go
Yeah,
lower,
so-
that's
So
fine.
my motion is to
I'd
approve a
approve
6-foot fence with the staff's final approval on the design along this style of fence. And it needs to be painted or treated, as either stain or paint. And so that's my recommendation, or
Is that a motion?
that's my motion.
I'll second that,
So
if that's your official motion.
that's my official motion.
All right.
So the motion and the second has been made. Is there any discussion?
I would ask that staff print that picture out and put that with the file. That way, there's something visibly
I
that
agree.
we can all say, this is what we looked
What we
at.
agreed to.
Yes.
Would it be okay to also add to that, I will do that, sir, and then also, if I added something like this, and then the condition of there be a bottom board as well, but this be painted, or not, or, I'm just throwing out a,
With the other one's one I'm approving, so I
Okay.
don't even like,
Yeah,
I don't like
I'm
that.
okay
That
with
one,
but just to clarify, we don't need these necessarily need these metal,
no, they just, they would,
design apparatus, it doesn't have to be but just the general
the bottom top,
bottom top wire mesh, make
and
it
if
look
it's
aesthetically pleasing.
6 feet of that.
All right?
We're leaning on you.
I will abide to the letter.
So a motion and second been made, discussion still open, any other discussion?
I think that's a good compromise. Like to see businesses being helped. I know you're trying to do the right thing, so
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
And that's what, I don't typically make motions, because I allow because I'm usually a tiebreaker. But we're getting caught up in the minutia of this, and we need, I feel you, and I sense you don't want to leave here today without a decision. And so we've, finally have come to some sort of conclusion for you. So motion second been made, discussion, anything else? I see none, so do a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartow?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Owens?
Yes.
Mr. Shoup?
Aye.
Mr. Roberto?
Yes. So it's been granted, so you just need to see, one, go and bring your design to the staff. They'll approve it, get the building.
Thank you.
And we wish you well. We hope these boogers quit dumping on your property, but they'll just move to somewhere else. Unfortunately, hopefully we catch them when we get them to stop.
Thank you.
Mr. Atkinson, do you have any questions, any obscurity at all as what's to be done, or now's the best time to ask, just in case?
No,
You're not
I'm good with
crystal clear.
that.
Perfect.
I'm gonna make sure any of you drive by it, it's gonna look good.
It will.
I'll stop by once you've got it completed. All right?
Thank you, sir.
All right,
Thanks, sir.
thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being in Colerain Township and your business. All right, moving on, case number 3, BZA 2021-10. This is a request for a variance to a building setback, request for a variance to required buffer yards. The location of the property is at 11981 Pippin Road. The applicant and owner is Michael Roundtree of Beautiful Savior Evangelical Lutheran Church. Does the staff have a presentation?
I do, sir. I will begin. Located now, we're moving up to the very northern edge of the township off Pippin. Right at the intersection of West Camper and Pippin is where Beautiful Savior is located. It's unique, that this parcel is actually dual zoned. It's R6 on the eastern half, R4 on the western half. And as many of you are probably aware, there's just a very large subdivision, well, fairly large subdivision approved by MI Homes in that R4 district there, Abbeytown. General overview here. This is a 2015 photo. The church received their conditional use from the board in 2012. In 2015, they came back for a request to do an addition. This is the 2015 aerial. This is kind of neat to me. The construction of the addition was captured. 2016, it says in the top up here, it was not anticipated to be cut off. And then basically this is as the property is now here in 2021. And this is my expert rendition of the addition that that the church and Mr. Roundtree are proposing. The plans you received. I would like to note that they are currently on Hamilton County Auditor lists this as a just over 5 acre parcel. And then they are also the owners of the adjacent parcel with 4.5 acres. And then as measured on cages, which isn't always exactly accurate, but it's fairly close. Currently, the nearest setback from the building now as it stands to the nearest neighbor on that same side of the street is approximately 483 feet. And again, a rough estimate of that distance would change and go down to 474 if this were to be approved. I just want to show that it's a very very large distance between them and between the church and the adjacent property owner. Just sort of give a little, these are a few screenshots from Google Street View, just to give an idea of how large of an area we're talking about. The applicable zoning resolutions to this, as a conditional use in a residential area, this falls under 7.4.10, religious places of worship. All buildings, activity areas, and parking areas shall be located a minimum of 50 feet from all lot lines when located within or adjacent to a residential zoning district. And religious places of worship shall meet the buffer requirements of uses within the B-2 zoning district, and that references table 14-1, and then also some other variances in there, ordinances in there, excuse me. The current required setback for a buffer yard would be 40 feet. Again, the board in 2015 did grant relief from that and approved the request in 2015. And then also pertaining to this would be the planning requirements for those buffer yards, is what the church is requesting a variance from. Some of those are to include a 6-foot high fence or wall, earth and mound berm, and 3 evergreens and 6 shrubs for every 60 feet, a lot line requiring a buffer, or in lieu of that fence or wall or earth and mound, the applicant may provide a natural buffer of the following: 8 evergreen trees planted in an offset manner to provide a solid buffer for every 80 lineal feet of lot line requiring said buffer, and 12 shrubs per 75 lineal feet requiring said buffer. In 2015, they were approved to do 6 evergreen trees where 66 were required, and 128 shrubs where 105 were required. And then also, I wanted to add this in here. This is sort of a little clause. Section 14.5.2 for lot buffers. Section C states, part number 5, excuse me, adjacent parcels owned by the same owner, which does apply in this scenario. When 2 or more adjacent parcels are owned and being developed at the same time by the same owner, the buffer may be placed on either adjoining parcel or strike the boundary if one property will remain vacant. The buffer shall be provided between the properties. In the sense that that'd be applicable if both lots were being developed at the same time. That was not the case with this, but however, they have become the owner of that adjacent parcel. I just want to note that they have a almost 470-foot buffer as it stands now, since they own that lot. Again, the criteria for variance review, and then staff finds our current use, it was an approved conditional use in the zoning district in which the property is located. It's R6 urban residential, based on a 2012 case, which was conditional use case presented before the board, pardon me. The grant of the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Granting of the request for variances of permitted setback or buffer yard requirements will not adversely impact adjacent property owners. And then the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach thereto such conditions regarding location, character, and other features of the proposed structure or use as it may deem necessary in the interest of the furtherance of the purposes of the resolution and in the public interest. Staff recommendation is for approval of the request for a 20.7-foot variance to 7.4.10 Part A, and approval of the request for variance to Section 7.4.10 Part B, that's the one that defaults to any landscape buffer requirements for a B2. for the property located at 11981 Pippin Road. Approval of variance with the following conditions: that the landscaping requirements per BZA 2015-08 be implemented prior to the initiation of any construction, which would take place based on a favorable outcome by the Board of Zoning Appeals from this specific hearing, or that the applicant performs a consolidation with a lot consolidation with the adjacent parcel to the south, which is also owned by Beautiful Savior Church, and that said consolidation be performed in a manner so as to bring the current use of property into compliance with the zoning resolution to the maximum extent possible.
Thank you.
Concludes my presentation.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Yeah, just one.
Okay.
Can you explain again your condition number 1 about the 2015?
They required 60 trees, they only did.
So you are saying they didn't put in what they should have put in?
As far as I can tell, that's what it appears to be.
Okay, all right. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? See none. Is the applicant present? This is the lake guy. Oh, man.
My name's Michael Roundtree. I'm with Childress and Cunningham. We're the architect for Beautiful Savior. Been their architect for many years, and what we're presenting now is basically following through on the vision that the church has had for these many years, kind of putting the final piece in it. If you notice, the parking lot went in back in 2005 or 6, that is my memory. And it was placed there with a drop-off that was going to anticipate this covered drop-off at some point in the future, and that's where we are now. Is we're creating this as a new entry to the church. It's going to, redefine the aesthetic, the front of the church as viewed from the street. It's actually in addition to the oldest portion of the building. The original building, I think, was built in 1973, which may predate the zoning code. I didn't even look into that, but so that's the reason why a lot of this building is located so close to the southern property line already. So we've planned this addition so that we're essentially respecting the building lines that are established by the building as it is right now. So we're coming no further south than the existing building does. We're coming no further east than the current building does. Unfortunately, because it's not perfectly parallel to all the property lines, that means technically we're reducing some of the existing setbacks to the front yard line, and that's what would trigger the need for the landscaping. But our argument is that we're essentially filling in a piece that's always meant to be there, and it's a small addition of 1,700 square feet, not really adding to the number of users of the church, but providing some new offices for the current staff, and primarily, like I said, adding a new vestibule and covered drop-off for people arriving to the church. So that's the basic presentation.
Okay. Anyone else speaking in favor? If you've signed in, please come forward and name and address for the record, please.
Tom Westra, 5861 Lake Tahoe Court in Fairfield. Could we have thank you. So I guess I'd like to make a couple of points if I could. One is, so it was pointed out that we did not install all the landscaping in the previous, but I think if you look at the property, you see we did install a whole lot of landscaping. It's just not all in the spots where it was. And the reason we didn't put it in the spots that it was on the drawings is because of the use of that property next door, which is also our parcel. If we could just pause, maybe. Yeah, that's a good place to stop. It's our school playground, so to put trees across there just would be a bit of a hardship for us, is one thing. We do have a school, and then maybe if we could advance the next few slides. In addition, we do a number of events on that property. We just had our pumpkin festival. We had a picnic back in September. Those are all events that we invite our community to. There was a shot earlier that showed across the street from us, you see the housing is pretty, right there, thank you. The housing is fairly dense in our area. There are no Colerain Township parks anywhere near us. And our neighbors use our property a lot. They come over, they walk their dogs, they use the playground with the kids, they watch the sunset. We want to be good neighbors in our community, and part of that is we really don't want to be closed off on all sides with barriers. So we think we've made the property look very nice from the road. We will continue to do that. I think that's reflected. There was one letter that was sent by our neighbor to the north supporting our request. And I believe also there was a phone call from a lady who lives across the street. We have a great relationship with our neighbors. And I don't believe there was any negative comments from our neighbors. And again, I think that's because we've tried to keep the property looking very nice. If we could just pause the previous one. So this is the closest neighbor. We just didn't feel a strong need for his sake to provide screening. He's just not that concerned about it. So that's the area we live in. So I wanted to share those two things with you. First of all, we have added a lot of landscaping. We'll continue to do that. And secondly, we want to be a church that when you drive by, you say that's a place we're welcome to come, whether that be Sunday mornings or whether that be just for some of the things we do for our events. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? You signed in. You don't want to speak?
The president of the congregation, but that's okay. I don't need to say anything more than what he did.
Thank you very much, sir.
You can move on.
I see no one else is in the audience to speak against. Do I have a motion to close the public portion?
So moved.
Motion and second been made. Any discussion?
I actually just have a quick question for staff, just out of curiosity. The landscaping that was mentioned that was not installed, was that a buffer requirement, or was it just landscaping as a part of the previous?
It was, I can remember because I was on the case. It was a buffer requirement because at the time they did not own the adjacent parcel.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it was the driveway and the lights were going to shine into it. So if somebody built a house there, it would have been in there.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hey, I don't know if you want, please.
If you're going to speak, come on up to the podium, please.
No, I'm sorry. To that point, we did own that property at that time.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
And at the time, maybe because it was a separate, I don't know what the scenario was, but we felt it was if you sold the property, then in that case, you would have a neighbor that was having lights in their eyes, so that's why we wanted the buffering at the time, but we granted you a variance on that, so. Any other discussion for staff? Okay, roll call vote on closing the public portion.
Mr. Bartle?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Owens?
Yes.
Mr. Shoup?
Yes.
Mr. Roberto?
Yes. Ms. Owens, you want to start us off?
I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Hill?
No questions?
Mr. Shupp?
No questions?
Mr. Bartle?
Well, I was just curious, since the staff has made some recommendations contingent upon approval, one was a consolidation, is that even a possibility, or is that not being pursued? If you want to.
Maybe Mr. Roundtree would answer this better than I. I really don't know what the implications are. We bought the property for expansion, is obvious from the views. We can't do anything more on our current 5 acres, so we bought that for expansion. In the meantime, it will just be green space. But yeah, we have no intention of selling it, so does it make sense to consolidate? I have no idea.
Well, I can give you some direction on that, because
Thank you.
as in our conferences that we go to, if there's multiple parcels, Hamilton County would like for us to consolidate parcels. It makes the whole tax purposes a whole lot easier. Now you're only going to get one tax bill. It also then helps us from a zoning perspective. Now your boundaries are even larger, Because then this becomes a non-issue as far as having to be within that constraint because you own it. But since they're separate parcels, they have to be treated as separate properties, and therefore that second property has to have the rights, even though you own it. It could potentially be sold to somebody else. If you consolidate it, now you have to go through the trouble to you have to break it apart to sell it. So it's a little more cumbersome, and then it goes through restrictions again. So we, as a board, have been charged, not everybody on this board probably was at some of these conferences we've been at, but that's what we've been asked to do, is to consolidate properties when they do come through our jurisdiction. And since you do have an architect that's kind of already done kind of the surveying, and it should be a pretty easy process now to get it done. So if you want to speak to that?
I'll just say that the consolidating the parcels has been something we've been aware is going to happen at some point in the future. You know, whenever they do intend to build on, an addition that spreads out onto that adjacent parcel, it'll be necessary at that time. So we submitted this without consolidating the parcels, just because we didn't feel it was necessary at this time to do so. And as you can see, we're well away from a 50-foot setback once we do consolidate the parcels. So we were just hopeful that we wouldn't need to do that at this point in time, but are fully aware that that is going to happen at some point in the future. So.
Okay. So clarification's been added for your group. You were the one who was still speaking, right? I always get stepping over everybody, sorry.
I'm fine.
All right. You now understand from my perspective, I mean, I have been to the conference, so Hamilton County has asked for us to consolidate when we can, and that's part of the ask now from zoning, and I do support that. So do we have a motion?
But we can't force them to do it.
No, we can make that as part of the.
Oh, we can?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's part of the staff recommendation, and we can enforce that.
Okay.
And Pastor Wester and I spoke a few days ago, and given that they want to expand, keep growing on their property, they would have to do that regardless, if that's what you want to do, is to keep growing your footprint on that.
Right. So
I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but
It's in their best interest, but.
That's a much more eloquent way of saying it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
all right. Anyone want to make a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the variance with the condition that they consolidate the parcel.
Okay. The motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion? I see none. Roll call vote.
Real quick, wasn't there an additional condition if you did the other or?
Just that it be done in a manner to bring the property into the highest compliance possible. With the reason for that little sort of modifier in the end there, just to make sure there isn't a lot split, then a consolidation.
Gotcha, okay.
Was that reasoning for that.
Yeah, straight consolidation is what we're asking
Just
for.
parcel 1 plus parcel 2
Becomes
parcel
parcel
3.
Perfect, okay.
Motion, second's been made. Discussion, we're still on that point. Anybody else? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bartol,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Shoup,
Yes.
Mr. Roberto.
Yes. So see staff, and they'll give you direction on how to proceed. Congratulations. And so next part, my notes here. We have unfinished business, I see none. We need approval of the minutes.
I will tell you, I do not have those ready for August meeting. I
Okay.
apologize for that.
So the
I will have
next,
those.
next meeting will be November the 24th. Do we have a case?
We do not now.
Okay.
So pardon me, when that agenda went out, there was an applicant who was going to do that. They have since withdrawn.
So now the next meeting would be in December.
December 22nd. And then I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, that if you wanted to, that is being that that's a few days before Christmas, you could do your meeting the Wednesday prior to, which I believe is the 17th. Double check like that. If that was an option, you have that ability, because we have the time frame to still give proper notice. We will have a case in December, or in some, which would be for there was a stacking variance granted to a property right up on Springdale Road. It would be for that property. It was the shops at Northgate. They're gonna do a yogurt smoothie shop there. Anyway, that plan got scratched. They wanna do a bank now, so, that would be with that case. I highly presume that will be in December.
Okay, so do we need to decide now the December date?
You do not have to now. If I will contact you, if you guys even wanna move it at all, if the board would like to at all, just given if that interferes with anyone's potential holiday
I think
plans.
while you got a captive audience, now is the time to make that decision.
Either one's fine with me, either date.
So we deciding between December 17th, which is a Friday, or?
I apologize. I'm so sorry. It'd be the
December
Wednesday preceding the 22nd, which
15th?
would be the 15th. I apologize. So December 15th, we could still do all of our proper notice to make sure we're in compliance with ORCO.
Or the 22nd is the other
Or
day,
the
or the option.
22nd.
So we got I don't care. What is your vote on this? You
Me?
care? Yeah.
Either one's fine.
Okay, how about you?
I don't care.
Okay, Ms. Owens?
I prefer the 15th, but I can roll with either one.
So right now, 15th is winning because we had two I don't cares. Mr. Shup?
Kind of leaning towards it, but I don't know why.
Towards the 15th?
Yeah.
All right, so then let's just move to the 15th, please.
I like your style. Thank you.
All right, so the next part is administrative matters. You've got something on here?
I hope I put this in the right topic. Yep, the Ohio Appellate Court, the First Circuit, there was a case in 2019 that came before the BZA for a non-permitted, that there was basically a landscape business being run off Stone Mill Road. They had appealed, they were denied by the BZA, they appealed that decision. They were denied at the next level up at the Common Pleas, I believe. And then they appealed that. They were on the docket to go before the First Circuit Appellate Court, and then they withdrew their case.
I think I remember that.
It wasn't landscaping, though. It was blacktop, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sometime,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't there for that. Yes,
And
Stone Mill,
yeah.
11851 maybe, Stone Mill.
Didn't have a permit to operate.
Didn't have and he was.
A lot of dump trucks
He was
and-
changing the elevation of the land. He was doing a lot of things that were,
It was,
so they went through and appealed it and lost both times?
they appealed the board's decision here at Colerain Township. They appealed, I believe it's the, let's go up to, the Circuit Court.
Goes to Common Pleas.
Common Pleas, they appealed, they lost their, appealed that. Right before they were gonna be heard, I believe their attorney said that they appealed just to preserve their rights. And in the meantime, they've since sold the property and are located somewhere else, probably become a problem for someone else.
Yeah, hopefully in a business district instead of a.
Hopefully.
Well, thank you for the update on that. That is nice, and because oftentimes we don't get that.
Right.
And that is good information for us to have, so I appreciate that.
If I may, is there anything that you guys, that the board would like to see changed, or anything you do like? Am I saying everyone's name correctly? Please forgive me if I'm not. Sir.
I mess up names all the time.
Shup? Thank you, sir, I apologize.
All right, you're not the first.
Wow.
Shoop, shup,
Shup.
shooby-dooby-doo-boo.
I have no rhythm or rhyme, so I'm not going down that road, sir.
Jared, was there a decision made on how we would receive materials going forward? Will it be email, or are you still mailing?
That's on an individual basis. If everybody wants
Oh,
hard
was it
copies, I'll send hard copies out. I know these big plans, they're nice generally to have. I prefer to have big plans.
Same
I
here.
will probably always do that unless someone does not want that.
Okay.
But if someone's like, nope, I love my iPad or my Surface, whatever it is, or
I'm a paper guy, so.
Same here.
Same.
everybody, that's the consensus I've received but I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, I'm flexible, but I would end up
Yeah.
printing my own, so.
Appreciate it.
Always
All right.
writing notes
Jared,
and stuff.
I will say, I think that you did a great job today. Welcome to Colerain Township, and hopefully you stay long and you enjoy what you're doing. And yeah, you definitely have a lot of knowledge, I can tell. And so thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you, board.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion for staff? Otherwise, we are going to adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
All right, roll call vote.
Mr. Bartol,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Shoup,
Yes.
Mr. Roberto.
Yes, we are adjourned.